Hello, everyone. Welcome to New Gen Politics. So, Trump has now officially met with the new Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister Carney. I came to the Oval Office yesterday, and they had a little bit of a tense back and forth, so I'll play that clip real quick.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low, and now they're stepping it up, and that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
So, obviously, Canada's not for sale. And Trump very cutely responds with, never say never. And it really is a never say never. Because Canada is not doing well. They're not in a good state. And the reason Carney was elected was for one purpose, and it was just to stick it to Trump. It was just to fight with Trump. Well, he went in there and he didn't really fight with Trump. He was very defensive. His body language very closed off. He understands, I think, inherently that he has no room to negotiate with Trump. Not really. Basically, the equivalent of Canada fighting the U.S. on this trade war is the mouse saying to the lion, I won't let you eat me because I won't. That's basically Canada. I won't let you mess with us because I won't. And it's okay, but you have no power to stop us. You have no authority. You have no economic security. You have no military. There's just nothing Canada could do if the U.S. wanted to take them over. Now, Trump is not that guy. He would not use military force to take them over. But even economically, he said during that meeting, we're not going to take your cars. We're not going to take your steel. And the look on his face is just oh no.
We want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada. And we put tariffs on cars from Canada. And at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number. And it's hard for the American taxpayer to...
Because he knows that if the U.S. totally just clamped down on Canada, said, we're no trade, we're done, Canada would fall apart in a matter of months. It really would. And even excluding U.S. intervention, Canada is already falling apart. Look at Alberta trying to secede already. Like they actually are going to have a referendum next year to leave. Saskatchewan also wants to leave. Well, what happens when Alberta, which is the biggest producer of oil in Canada and a lot of their natural resources, what happens when they leave? Well, then the structure of Canada is now significantly weaker. The country does even worse, and then other provinces might want to leave. And so if Trump wants to put the hurt on them, he really, really can. And no amount of like wishful thinking will actually stop that from happening. Now, Trump doesn't want to destroy Canada. He doesn't want to ruin the lives of Canadian citizens. But he's just like, this place is being terribly run. We can't have a ghetto on our northern border. And that's what Canada's turning into. It's on the verge of collapse. And all of this just saying like, nuh-uh, like it doesn't do anything because it's not true. You can say that all you want. You can talk about Canadian pride all you want. But where's that Canadian pride when you're bringing in millions upon millions of immigrants that are completely destroying the fabric of the country, which is why places like Alberta want to leave, because you're completely favoring groups of people from other countries. They're completely locking Alberta's economy down. They won't let them produce energy through oil. And it's just a complete disaster up there. So I like during the meeting when they said, is there anything you can that the prime minister can say for you to turn the tariffs off, Trump? And he said, no, there's nothing you can do.
Tariffing Canada, is there anything he could say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No,
Why not?
just the way it is.
Because it's not a matter of linguistics. It's not a, we're just being nice here and he's just got to be polite and say the right thing. No, you're ripping us off. While you continue to rip us off, we're going to have this trade problem. We're going to have this tariff problem. While you continue to have an open border that allows fentanyl and crime across, we're going to have this problem. So Canada's in a really bad spot. The young people are like furious at the old people because the reason the old people voted was just to stick it to Trump. That's the number one reason. The reason the young people voted was because everything's too expensive and life sucks. So the young people are furious at the older generation because they actually care about their country. They want to live in a place that's nice where they can actually succeed. And the boomers are ruining everything. So with time, the young people might voluntarily want to become part of the United States. They might want to completely reverse their policies. And we're seeing that trend all over the Western world where like the older boomer generation who had it amazingly easy. They really did. They've got all the financial wealth of their generation, of what they inherited, and leeching all of that from the younger generations. So they're just like relaxing in retirement. They love it. And then they can focus on social issues because we know you can only focus on social issues once your, basic needs are met. Well, the young people's basic needs are not being met. So that, no matter what you want to talk about Canadian pride or sticking it to Trump, all of that is secondary to I cannot afford to buy a house, or even let alone I can't afford to live in an apartment. I can't find a job because I am demanding Canadian wages, and instead they'll just bring in some immigrant to work for half that price. That's the problem with the young people in Canada, is they're like upset about those things. And it's happening not in just Canada, but Australia and England and the whole West, even in America. So you're going to see this like massive upheaval in ideology between the young people and the old people very soon, because millennials are really starting to take power. Gen Z is finally getting into really the workforce and into positions of power, and the boomers are retiring. So there's going to be some massive changes, but thinking that Canada is a country that is allowed to exist or is going to exist just because it is allowed to, that there's no guarantees. If you're any country, doesn't matter if you're the United States or Canada, you have to prepare for any inevitability. That's the reality of being in a country. And Canada did not. They have done everything in their power, same as the US, to really handicap themselves. It's just we've got a bigger buffer because we made out bigger over our long history. We've done a lot better. So we can afford to ruin ourselves a little bit more than Canada does. Canada's on the total brink of collapse. They're not prepared at all for a real trade war with the United States. Because if the United States just said no more trade with Canada and anybody who trades with Canada will block off trade with you, like what Trump could do, he won't, but he could do that. There's nothing Canada could do. They just collapse tomorrow. Sorry, your country was not prepared to handle dealing with a world superpower. And your arrogance of electing somebody whose sole purpose is to insult the president, it doesn't go over well. It's not a great strategy. So Canada needs to get its act together. Trump does actually like Canada, does actually like the people. He's not treating them unfairly. He's treating them literally fairly because we've been ripped off by Canada for so long. He wants to treat them exactly fairly. The problem is Canada can't exist when they're treated fairly. That's the problem. So we'll see what happens because there's that kind of line to walk where Trump will probably actually give them some leeway, more than they deserve on paper, like from a purely mathematical standpoint, because he doesn't want to see the people of Canada totally collapse. He doesn't want to see Canada become a ghetto on our northern border. If it does, then that's a good enough reason to take it over, is just like, look, you guys failed. And you obviously can't govern yourselves because you governed yourselves into the ground. And even if it doesn't take that process, even if it takes the way I said, Alberta leaves and Saskatchewan leaves and, the country starts falling apart, every time we take a piece from them, not even we take a piece, but a piece of them leaves to join us voluntarily, Canada gets weaker and the likelihood of the entire, house of cards falling down increases dramatically. Now, I'm not saying any of this is good because a lot of bad things that come from a country's being absorbed and whatnot. But I'm just saying this is the reality. Like Canada, like in your pursuit of the only thing you care about is fighting Donald Trump, you have foregone economic stability. And ultimately, you can fight him verbally, even through his whole administration. But eventually that economic backbone that you have totally kneecapped yourself with will come to bite you in the butt. Whether it's with the next president of the United States or the next one, eventually Canada will become so weak that America might just walk in and take it. So that's my thoughts on this. I'm interested to see more about the negotiations between these two and how this goes. Trump still wants to take over Canada. I think a lot of the Americans do too. And obviously some of the Canadians want to leave as well. They'd rather be part of anywhere but Canada. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I'll be talking about that more as we find out more, as there's more of these diplomatic talks, not only with Canada, but the Western world as a whole. As I said, these ideologies are changing very, very rapidly. So if you want to be around for that, make sure you subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And thank you for watching.